If we move along through the arrangement, we come to a second backing track. This is also a rock-style backing track. This one is called Rock Ringside. So let's have a listen. This track is in B flat. One thing we can clearly hear in this track is the guitar playing the 8th note. For this reason, it might be better to use some legato strings, rather than layer the guitar with strings playing fundamentally the same thing. Having said that, if we listen carefully, we can hear that there is already a synth pad playing a legato passage. So we have to ask ourselves, is it worth adding strings if the elements that strings might add to the arrangement are already there? The solution to this is simply to try. This is also commonplace in the world of arranging. You may simply have to try a few different ideas to see whether it helps or hinders a track. Of course, these ideas do not have to be completely finished. You can simply do a few ideas without finishing them, just to see if one of them works. If one of the ideas is worth going with, then you can put the extra time in to finish it properly. And even then, you can end up, when it comes to mix time, muting complete sections. As we mentioned previously, less is more, so unless something is necessary and really adds to the arrangement, it may be best to keep things simple. So let's try an idea. I'll be using the legato instrument from the Cine Samples Lite library again. And the first thing I'll do is record the key switch at the beginning of this section to set the instrument to legato. For the minute, the instrument is fairly dry, but for now, that's okay. I intend starting with a fade-in, so a swell in volume to bring the instrument in. So now let's record a take. The end of this backing track is pretty terrible, to be honest, so I didn't play over it. But this isn't important. Analysing what was played in, we could hear that at the beginning I was playing very simple melodic lines. And as we went through the backing track, it became somewhat fuller. So towards the end, we were definitely filling out the arrangement with extra notes. If we look in the editor page, we can see that we really didn't play too much. Almost all of it is playing single notes, and occasionally we have some second notes. The song is in B-flat major, and fundamentally I stick to the notes of the scale. Having said that, occasionally I can play the 7th note to create a certain mood. If we listen in solo, we can hear at the beginning that I create the fade-in using the modulation wheel. And I also play the B-flat note an octave lower just after the fade-in to create some added depth. By following the score, we can also see just how much movement there is in the modulation wheel. creating the dynamics we need. Halfway through, we can clearly see how I fade away and bring the strings back in, which creates space and power. Towards the end, the higher notes are almost too noticeable. There is something in the frequencies that stands out too much. But once again, in the realms of this tutorial, this isn't a problem. One note that is quite powerful in the strings is the A note. In fact, the notes that are not the chord notes, i.e. the notes that aren't the 1, 3 or 5, are often the notes that create the interesting moments in an arrangement. So here we have the A note, or the major seventh, that then resolves to the root. And these notes are very strong within our arrangement. If we were to just stick to the chord notes, we would not be bringing much to the arrangement. At the end, we could extend these sustained notes and draw a smoother controller curve to create a fade out. It would be nice to fade this high note in and out, but to do this, I would need to place it on its own track in order to give it its own modulation or expression. Using legato strings to create this example leaves space in the arrangement for the other instruments, such as vocals, which still have to be added. If we now run through whilst muting and unmuting the strings, we can hear how much or how little it adds. After having listened to it, I would say that a simple legato string line such as this definitely adds to the arrangement.